My name is Sally Marcus, and what we're going to be doing today is explaining NMAA seeding and selection process. There's a misconception out there that the NMAA has input into the seeds and the selection of teams to the state tournament. And basically what we have in bylaw 7.11, we have 6 criteria points that we use. And in the 6 criteria points, if you look at them from the top to the bottom, number 1 is finish in regular season district play. Number 2 is head-to-head. Number 3 is wins against district champions regardless of class. Number 4 is overall record. Number 5 is a Max Preps Freeman rankings. And number 6 is member school input. All 6 of these are data driven. There is not any input that comes from the NMAA. So when we seed and select, we are using numbers, and we are looking at numbers only out of these 6 criteria points. And the 6 criteria points, not one is more than the other. In other words, a head-to-head competition does not weigh heavier than the overall record when we come to the 6 criteria points. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how we use these 6 criteria points to seed and select. I will be using the 6A boys basketball, and I'm going to compare Oñate and Cleveland. Now, in the seeding and selection, if there is a tie, we use head-to-head to break the tie, and if there was no head-to-head, then we revert back to max preps. Now, the first thing we do, we come in, whether it's Saturday night for football or Sunday night for all the other sports, is we will receive the district placement form that you see here on the screen. The district placement form is sent to us by the district chairs, and we receive this form for every single district. Now, what the form does, it gives us regular season, and then it also gives us where somebody finished in the district tournament when that relates to volleyball and basketball. And so the district chair tells us who was first, second, third, fourth, and so on in their district. Now, in seeding and selection, a team cannot be seeded or selected in front of an opponent above them. So, for example, if somebody was number 2 in the regular season and somebody was number 3 in the regular season, we cannot seed the 3rd place in district above the 2nd place team. And so that sometimes does cause a little bit of issues when it comes to an exact science of seeding and selection. But the reason for this is the athletic directors, the commission, and the board of directors have instructed us that the way we finish in district in the regular season is very important, and therefore you cannot be seeded or selected above somebody else who finished higher. Now, once we receive the district placement forms, we then get the school input forms. And when we say school input, this is a form that should be filled out by the coaches. Now, where we have an issue with this form is we tend to get the school input forms from the coaches from the teams that think they're going to make the top 16 in basketball or the top 12 in volleyball. Ironically, when a school does not have a very good season, we tend not to get this form. Now, this form is needed whether you think you're going to make the tournament or not. We need to turn in this form because it would have an impact on the seeds for the state tournament. In the example I'm going to give you for 6A boys basketball this last season, we received only 14 out of 24 schools on the coach's input in 6A boys basketball. Now, when we receive this form, we would put it in a matrix such as this. And if you look at this matrix, we have all the schools from top to bottom listed, and then we have all the schools across. As you see here, let's go down to this second one, and as you see, this is Albuquerque High, and these are how they seeded and selected, or not seeded and selected, this is how they put the coach's input in. And what we will do is we will get this form, and let's say Albuquerque High in this case had Oñate as number 1, or Valley as number 1 in this case, then Valley would receive 16 points. And then we will go on and go back from number 1 to number 16. So if a coach seeds somebody number 1, we give them 16 points. If they seed somebody number 2, then we give them 15 points, and we go all the way down to number 16. The number 16 on a coach's input would receive 1 point. So as you see there, what it is that happens is the team with the largest number of points, again, if somebody's seeded number 1, they're getting 16 points. So the team with the largest number of points would be number 1. The second largest number of points would be 2, all the way down to number 16. And that is how we figure out where a team falls when it comes to coach's input. Now, from this slide that I'm showing you, we are comparing 2 teams, which is Cleveland and Oñate. And this is 6A boys, and this is from the last season, the 2015-16 season. So what we do, and we do this all the way for every single team, when we're comparing 2 schools, we look at the 6 criteria points. And you have to remember, not one point is above the other. So in this particular case, this is how they finished in district. And in this last year, Cleveland finished first in their district. Oñate finished first in their district. Therefore, not one of them received the criteria point. So we just mark it. Nobody got that criteria point. The next one is head-to-head. Cleveland and Oñate did not play. And so since they did not play, nobody received that criteria point. Wins against district champions. Now, when I say wins against district champions, it does not matter the class. So we go back, and if Cleveland played a 5A district champion and beat them, then we do count that. If Oñate beat a district champion out of El Paso, we do also count that. So we do count wins of district champions, not only in New Mexico. We do look at the districts in Texas, Arizona, we look at the Colorado, we look at those to see if those are district champions when a team beats them. In this particular case, Cleveland beat 6 district champions throughout the year, and Oñate also beat 6 district champions. Therefore, not one of them got the criteria point. So now we're down to overall record. Cleveland's overall record was .75. Oñate's overall record was .852. Therefore, Oñate wins that criteria. Max Preps. Cleveland was 3rd in Max Preps, and we do get the Max Preps rankings at the morning of the seeding and selection. So, for example, in this case with basketball, we had the latest Max Preps rankings at 8 a.m. on Sunday. Cleveland was 3rd. Oñate was 1st in Max Prep rankings. Therefore, Oñate would win that criteria point. Coaches' input. Oñate came out with the most points from coaches. So they were number 1 in coaches' input. Cleveland was number 2 in coaches' input. So Oñate would win that criteria point. So as you see here, we have 1, 2, 3 criteria points that Oñate won, and Cleveland did not win any criteria points. So Oñate has won the 6 criteria points by a score of 3-0. Therefore, we must seed Oñate above Cleveland. Now, we do this for every single team we compare from one to the other. So as you see here, there is not any NMAA input. There's no bias. It is all data-driven. And so when you do get where somebody is seeded, we could justify every single seed by using the 6 criteria points. Now, sometimes there is a tie. And when I say there's a tie, for example, this was a 5A softball this year, where when we did the criteria points, Miyamura beat Bernalillo in criteria points 3-2. Los Lunas beat Miyamura 4-2. However, Bernalillo turns around and beats Los Lunas 3-2. So as you see, we really have a three-way tie here. So what we do is we do the 6 criteria points with the 3 schools. Now when I'm saying criteria points, we're going to go through these. Where did they finish in district? Los Lunas finished 2nd in district, Miramira finished 3rd in their district, and Bernalillo was a district champion. Therefore, we gave Bernalillo 1 point, Los Lunas 2, and Miramira 3. So as you see just by this criteria point, how you're going to win the three-way tie is if you have the least amount of points, because we only gave 1 point to a school that finished 1st in district and 3 points to a school that finished 3rd. Now, head-to-head. In head-to-head wins between the 3 schools, Los Lunas was 1-0, Miramira was 0-1, and Bernalillo was 0-0. So by the percentage here in the wins, Los Lunas would get 1 point because they won, Bernalillo was 2 points, and Miramira was 3 points. Now, finished district champions. Who beat how many district champions? In this case, Los Lunas beat 3 district champions, Miramira beat 2 district champions, and Bernalillo beat 1 district champion. Therefore, the points, Los Lunas won that category, so they get 1 point. Miramira was 2nd in that category, so they get 2 points. And Bernalillo was 3rd in that category, so they get 3 points. Overall record, Los Lunas .615, Miramira .720, and Bernalillo was .880. Bernalillo won that category, so they get 1 point. Miramira was 2nd, so they get 2. Los Lunas was 3rd, so they get 3. Max preps, 5 for Miramira, 6 for Bernalillo, 7 for Los Lunas. Therefore, the points reflect that. Miramira with 1 point, Bernalillo with 2, Los Lunas with 3. Coaches' input, the coaches had Los Lunas 5th, Miramira 6th, and Bernalillo 7th. Thus, 1, 2, and 3. So we add up all the points from the 6 criteria, and as you see, Los Lunas had 11 points, Bernalillo had 12, and Miramira had 13. Now what we do here is, again, I told you that the smallest amount of points would win the tiebreaker. Los Lunas had the smallest amount of points, so they would be seated above Miramira and Bernalillo. Now, once we take out a school, so Los Lunas is going to be seated above the other 2, then we go back and we compare these schools. So we would compare Miramira to Bernalillo on their own, because no longer is it a tie because we took Los Lunas out. Therefore, Miramira beat Bernalillo head-to-head in the 6 criteria points, so Miramira would be seated next, and Bernalillo would be seated after that. So that is how we do break a three-way tie. Now, we do have situations where the three-way tie may come up with a point total such as this, where it's 12, 12, and 14. We can't break out this first school because the top 2 are tied. So what we would do in this situation is we would break out the 3rd place team here because they had the most points. We would put them 3rd, and then we would compare school number 1 with school number 2 to make a decision who would be seated above the other. So as you see, as we go through all of the criteria points and we go through seating and selection, everything is data driven. And if you ever have any questions as to why somebody is seated above the other, you cannot use that excuse that, oh, they just like this school over the other, or, they played a tougher schedule than we did, or something like that. You have to always go back to the 6 criteria points when you do seating and selection. Because what we do is we sit around the table and we compare one school to the other in all the classifications. So every seating and selection position is justified by data. And if you ever have questions, you can call me at 505-923-3267, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have with seating and selection. Thank you very much.